am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. Welcome to a very, very special episode. Well, actually, a series of episodes all about the Star Wars films. Yes. I am HB Gibson along with
RT Mac, a Padawan in training.
That's right. You see, he has the lightsaber and I don't. I got one here with no blade. See, that's what happens when you don't have a blade. That is courtesy of that is one of the Force Effects lightsabers from Hasbro, the Signature Series. And we're talking Star Wars today. The first subject we're going to be talking about, this particular episode, is we're going to be talking about the
original trilogy.
Yeah, it's difficult to talk about Star Wars and try to concise it in just parts, the parts that we really want to talk about. So, being that this is H&R Movie Talk, we're just going to keep it film-based with some special appearances by some toys and action figures and things of that nature.
And real quick, you mind if I just check something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Perfect.
We're good. We're
perfect. Sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we punch the coordinates in the Navicomputer, or else we'll crash into a star and then bounce into a supernova, and that would end our trip really quick now, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
Han Solo, baby. All right. So we're going to be talking about the original trilogy. So let's talk about, first of all, the creator of Star Wars.
Oh yeah, Mr. George Lucas himself.
Yep, born May 14th, 1944 in Modesto, California.
And he's one of the three greatest living directors of his generation, the new wave.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the other two I'm talking about, Mr. Steven Spielberg
Yep.
and Mr. Martin Scorsese.
Yes, those were the big three.
And those three came around about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
About the same time, and I know that George Lucas himself was inspired to make Star Wars in part by Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, originally, also, he wanted to gain the rights to Flash Gordon because he wanted to do a Flash Gordon film, but those rights were already taken up by another company, which was later released, starring Sam J. Jones, a guilty pleasure movie of mine. But moving right along.
Oh, you know what? You know what? It's funny you mentioned Sam Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard on the radio that he and Lou Ferrigno had a fight at the con.
What?
Yeah, I think yesterday. Either yesterday or earlier today.
Oh my goodness! All right.
They were brawling, but that's just something I wanted to point out.
Oh wow, great story, but let's take it back to the galaxy far, far away for a minute. So Star Wars was released May 25th.
Yeah.
May 25th, 1977, and I'm gonna tell you something, man. I was sitting in a movie theater when I was a kid. I forget exactly what film it was that I saw, but I saw this wonderful trilogy. If you look on trailer. Yeah, we're gonna get to the trilogies. This wonderful trailer for a film, and all I saw was spaceships flying. I saw a big guy in a black costume and a helmet, looked really scary. I saw soldiers dressed up in white uniforms, white armored uniforms. I saw two guys hitting each other with laser swords, androids, and a really cool guy that said "Yahoo!" which later on we found out was Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford. And the very next year, Star Wars was released, and I don't think the entire world was the same again.
I think it's because nobody really expected a movie like that. I guess they didn't know what to make of it. And in fact,
Right.
20th Century Fox didn't believe in it, so they allowed George Lucas to keep the merchandising rights.
Exactly. He also reserved the right to at least do the sequels. So in other words, it was like, hey, if this movie doesn't make it, let me get the money for the merchandise. So that was where the crazy merchandise thing started happening in correlation to films. Star Wars really started that. I mean, as far as having toys made after films. Not necessarily that they started it, but they really made it a thing.
Well, actually, that's not entirely true. I mean, as far as science fiction goes, absolutely. But you can actually trace that all the way back to Charlie Chaplin, because he was one of the first to realize the power of merchandising.
Right.
That's
Okay.
why he had the little tramp, dolls and stuff selling like hotcakes, and
Right.
just his whole look was selling.
Right.
And actually,
okay.
Walt Disney was another.
Right.
With
Very
Mickey
true.
Mouse. But as far as science fiction goes, oh yeah,
Nothing-
Lucas deserves the credit.
I tell you, I don't think there's any other toy line. Even though there were some great toy lines, there was really nothing messing with Star Wars at all. As a matter of fact, we're going to get into the movies right after this because we don't want to waste any more time. The very first Star Wars action figures, I'm quite sure that some of you old school Star Wars fans know this, that Star Wars action figures were announced, but they were not made in time to meet the demand, even though Star Wars was such a huge hit. So what they did was they made a special offer on television called the Early Bird Offer. So what you did was you filled out a form. I guess you got the form at the store. You filled it out and you sent it in. What you did was you got a stand. That's all you got was a stand. You didn't get the action figures until they were made. But it was basically a promise saying that, okay, if you put in for this, you'll get a stand, right? And you'll be in, I guess, in Quay to get your Star Wars action figures. The very first 4 action figures, Star Wars action figures, I have them right here. But these were the Power of the Force action figures. These aren't the original ones from 1977. It was Chewbacca, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and R2-D2. These were considered the early birds, but even though these are not the original ones, these are the Power of the Force ones that came out in 1998 when Star Wars was re-released in their special edition form. But the original Kenner ones, these were the ones.
Oh, the special edition ones, I saw those in theaters.
Yeah.
They re-released them.
Mm-hmm.
That was some of my earliest exposure to Star Wars, and it was great.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the stuff that was changed.
Yeah.
Certain things I feel were changed for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll get to later on, and we'll get to the whole George Lucas changing things every few years.
Mm.
We'll get to that issue, but yeah.
Let's start with the first one.
We had the first one having one of the most veteran actors of his day, Sir Alec Guinness.
Yes, as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, who I believe you're dressed modeled after.
Well, this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi costume I got from JediRobe.com. So all you cosplayers out there who are looking for a Jedi costume, a nice Jedi costume, you can get it from JediRobe.com. See, a plug. I'm doing plugs. You guys should pay me for this. No, it's my pleasure as a Star Wars fan to tell you guys about this. But yes, this is an Obi-Wan Kenobi costume. But whenever I go to a convention, people look at me just because I'm black. They go, "Oh, you're Mace Windu." I said, "No, I'm just a Jedi." I don't have a name. Not really. I never made up a name.
Well, the thing is, every time I see a bald black dude, that's what they're gonna think.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna think.
But you know what? We had, another guy, Harrison Ford, who would work on another cool film series with Lucas, along with Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
We had newcomer Mark Hamill, good-looking young boy. We had the daughter of the late Debbie Reynolds, the late Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher, yes.
Who I believe was either 19 or 20 around this time.
Yeah.
She was young.
Oh, they were young. They were all young. They were all young.
Carrie Fisher, though, was the youngest.
Yeah.
And we had Kenny Baker in the R2-D2.
The late Kenny Baker,
The late Kenny Baker passed away last year.
Mm-hmm. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. Yes.
Heard he wasn't that nice to Kenny Baker.
No, they went back and forth from what I understand.
Yeah, you got to give it to Anthony Daniels, though. He still does C-3PO in any incarnation that they meet him in. And, of course, Peter Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and he still does Chewbacca, but more of the voice. They now have someone else filling in the costume because age gets to you.
Right.
You can only do those movements and stunts for so long.
But you got to give it to Peter Mayhew. He's a trooper. He still makes the conventions whenever he's able to make it. I did see him last year at WinterCon, and of course he did make it to the recent celebrations. Matter of fact, a lot of the guys made it to Celebration. A lot of the Star Wars actors made it to Celebration, including, believe it or not, the man that played Wedge Antilles.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, people, he was like, Star Wars, ha! But he made it to the recent Star Wars celebration, and I think that it was his first Star Wars celebration.
I wonder if he's kicking himself for not doing it before.
Yeah.
But one of the ultimate actors of that movie, we actually never saw his face, only heard his voice. And who is that?
James Earl Jones, and I'm going to show you a little something. Caught up with James Earl Jones a couple of years ago. I had just bought this Darth Vader lightsaber, and I had to have him sign the base for this. I don't know if you can see it, but right up there, that is James Earl Jones' signature. It's kind of fading away there because I know the Sharpie is not made to really, to be signed. I hope you guys can see it.
Well, you know what? You could probably, during the editing, you could probably put like an arrow and
like,
point to where it
have it like, ding, ding, ding. Yeah. But yeah, that was one of my best experiences meeting a Star, because I never really met anybody else from Star Wars. No, actually, I'm lying. Many years ago, I went to a convention, a comic convention. It was over in California, I believe, and I ran into the man that wore the Darth Vader costume, Mr. David Prowse. And actually, to tell you the truth, he was very nice about it, very cordial. But from what I understand, and I don't really want to bring negative stuff onto the show, but he hasn't really been that happy lately with within the past couple of years in regards to Star Wars and his part in it. But the truth being told, David, you were a part of history. You wore the costume. Nobody's going to wear the costume like you. And if you've ever seen Rogue One, let me divert for a little bit. The person that wore the Darth Vader costume in Rogue One, I forget the gentleman's name, but I'm quite sure that when I edit this, I'm going to put it right down here. Blink, yeah, there it is. I don't know what I put, but blink, there it is. You can tell the difference in movement.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell the difference in movement. Nobody's going to move like David.
Well, the thing is, one of the most iconic things that David did in costume is in one of the sequels, which we'll get to, because it's one of the most iconic images in cinema history. Mm-hmm. So let's just get through real quick because we don't want to waste too much time. You had the original one, straight up, space opera kind of film. Yep. Basically, you're under a tyrannical dictatorship. Mm-hmm. And you have a small resistance of fighters trying to bring democracy back. Yep. True democracy. Yep. And basically, you have a moon-sized space station that can actually destroy an entire planet. Yep. That was no moon. It was a space station. And you have a small group of fighters, the rebel fighters, make what is virtually a suicide mission to try and destroy this thing, which thanks to our gang of misfits, our favorite misfits, Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi was able to disable their shield generators. And thanks to the recent spin-off, we found out why. We found out how they got the plans. And found out why there was like a little, what was the size of the hole? It was only like 2 meters. 2 meters. Yeah. We find out later on that it was an intentional design flaw, but at the time, that's one thing people always, tease Lucas about. It's like, really? You have a ship that can destroy a planet, and yet, if you shoot something into this little 2-meter hole, it can blow the entire thing up. Yeah. That's like a very serious design flaw. Well, according to some lines that I cannot quote, only Mark Hamill would quote it. It was lines that he had to read when he first did the reading, and his reaction was like, "Who talks like this?" He said basically that the Death Star was really only designed for a large-scale assault, and that was also quoted by one of the leaders of the rebel forces. I forget the name of the character's name. He's got the beard. He said that they're not
weren't expecting a small scale vehicle to be any kind of a threat. Otherwise, they would have a tighter defense. Yeah, I got that line right. And he was like, the range is only 2 meters wide, and all the rebel pilots was like, what? And then Luke was like, Wedge was like, oh, that's impossible, even for a computer. And then Luke was like, oh, that's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home, and they're only about 2 meters. Wow, I know the movie good, don't I?
But you know what? Since the good guys won in the first movie, you had to know that the bad guys were going to strike back in the second movie. Hence the title
Empire Strikes Back, which was released in 1982.
No.
86.
I think it was it might have been 81 or 82. 82 or 83.
We're going to put the correct date right down there. See, it's flashing right now. I don't even know what it is, but I didn't put there yet.
But basically, that iconic image of Mr. David inside the Darth Vader suit was when he and Luke Skywalker were about to clash lightsabers for the first time.
He was standing there, just dark clad. The only thing that you could see was his outline and the lights from his from his belt and his breathing unit on his chest. And
the lightsabers. That's it.
Yeah, and then Luke pulled out the lightsaber, and then Darth Vader pulled out the lightsaber. But let me tell you something about that trailer. When the trailer was released, when Star Wars was re-released, I think for like the third or fourth time. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, we did not have cable back then. No. Cable was like young back then, but we didn't have on demand. We didn't have like VHS really. We didn't really have the home stuff where we could watch the movie anytime we wanted to. We had to wait for films to be re-released in theaters in order to see them again. So one year Star Wars was released and there was a poster there, and there was a little ad at the bottom of the poster saying, stay tuned after the film to see a preview of The Empire Strikes Back. And everybody stayed at the end, and we saw the trailer for The Empire Strikes Back. And as a child, I was traumatized because of one particular scene.
Which scene was that?
Nobody likes to see their heroes get hurt. Nobody wants to see their heroes captured and in a compromising position. Spoiler warning if you never saw Empire Strikes Back, but it was disturbing watching Han Solo get tortured. Not only was he lowered onto that torturing thing, Vader got up in his grill and made sure that he suffered. He was like, yeah, oh, it hurt, don't it? Yeah. That bothered me as a kid. So, sorry to interrupt, but I'm like Kanye. I don't mean to interrupt you, but but seriously, whenever that scene would come up, I saw Empire Strikes Back like several times in the theaters. Every time when that scene came up, I was like, Mom, Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom. Because I couldn't stand watching him suffer.
Well, here's the thing. If you've ever seen Kevin Smith's movie Clerks, the original one,
yep.
Dante and Randall, the two clerks, they have a discussion about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, Dante says that, Dante points out that Empire is the best of the Star Wars movies because
exactly
it ended on such a downer.
Yeah.
Because you have, spoiler alert, Luke finds out that Vader is actually his father, who he thought was dead.
That was tough for everybody.
So that's one. You have Han Solo getting encased in carbonite and sent to Jabba the Hutt. And before Luke finds out that Vader's his father, he gets his hand cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly one of the more, as guys will probably sympathize with this, Han finds out that Leia loves him right before he's encased.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the ultimate cock block.
Yeah, well,
it is.
But you know what? I come to find out, and since there's a lot of women now, I've seen, like back in the day, you really didn't see too many female Star Wars fans, even though they were there. But more guys talked about Star Wars than females. But now I'm hearing later on that there's a lot of women that went absolutely bonkers when Princess Leia said, I love you, and when Han Solo said, I know, these chicks screamed out that, because for some reason the fact that Han Solo said "I know," it did something to them. I don't know what it was, but it did something to.
It's Harrison Ford.
It's Harrison Ford being cool. Like, I know.
he was that hunky bad boy that all the women wanted to be with.
Yeah.
He was tall, good looking, a rebel in his own right.
Yeah.
He was a rebel on his own without the rebels.
And Empire Strikes Back. Oh, one tidbit about the Empire Strikes Back. On the set, the line was, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. And then Luke was like, he told me enough. He said, no, Luke. Obi-Wan killed your father. That was the line that he thought was in the film. But when James Earl Jones got the lines to overdub, to voice Darth Vader, it was completely different. And the reaction in the theater, even at the premiere, was
it's one of the most shocking moments in all of film history.
Mark Hamill looked at Harrison, and Harrison was like, "Hey kid, I didn't know that was going to happen." No, or something to that effect.
But you know what? There were some light moments, like the introduction of Yoda, legendary Jedi Master.
A puppet that they thought was either going to work or was not going to work, but they had it in good hands with Mr. Frank Oz.
And you know what? Wasn't it Jim Henson who designed the Yoda puppet? Wasn't it his studio that designed it?
Actually, it was Ralph McQuarrie drew him. There was the illustration.
Actual puppet.
The actual puppet was done by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and it was then puppeteered by Mr. Frank Oz, also voiced by Frank Oz. And it was a long shot. It was like they had to convince the audience that this thing was more than a puppet, and they did a very good job.
And then going into the third film, Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
When Yoda, how old was he when he died?
800 years old. I believe it was 800.
I think it was 900. I think it was 900.
900? I thought it was 800.
Either way, he's an old dude.
Yeah.
He's an old dude, and it's finally catching up with him, but he tries to warn Luke about the Emperor, the man behind everything.
Yes.
Tells him not to underestimate him, because they freed Han Solo, killed Jabba.
Yep.
And they had help with someone from Empire, Lando Calrissian.
Yeah,
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, we got to backtrack to Empire for a second. Billy D. Williams owned that part. Lando Calrissian, probably the first brother of sci-fi history, and another character that did not have to say nothing, hardly said a word, became one of the most iconic Star Wars characters in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Boba Fett. The baddest bounty hunter in the world. The guy doesn't have to talk. As a matter of fact, if he talked too much, I think that would ruin the mystique. Let me show you something real quick.
Better hurry, because we may be running out of time.
Oh, we're going to get to Return of the Jedi in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, these are Boba Fett Star Wars Adidas. Believe it or not, yes. It has Boba Fett here wearing the the boom box, and it even has like a little hidden thing right here. Yeah. Okay, Return of the Jedi.
Thank you.
Okay.
you had our favorite gang of misfits again, and as soon as everybody's free, everything's happy, we find out there's another Death Star being built. But since
we'll get to this in a second.
Since the Death Star wasn't completed, they had a window of opportunity to destroy it, but basically the shield generator, or wherever its power source was located on the forest moon of Endor, a place that a lot of people hate.
Yeah, a lot of people did not like the Ewoks. And to be perfectly honest, out of all the Star Wars films, even though it's important and it had its parts, like the rescuing of Han Solo, which was actually a longer scene. If you ever see the deleted scene, there was a sandstorm that happened as they were boarding the Millennium Falcon. there was an even longer battle that happened at the base on Endor when they were attempting to shut off the shield generator. People were not very happy with the Ewoks, and even though it's my least favorite of the film, it was still important because of those scenes and the final battle between Luke and Vader, which was epic and emotional.
Because Vader, when Luke realizes that Leia is his sister, which makes the little kiss they had in Empire creepy.
Yeah.
Vader pulled out that card because he could sense it.
Mm.
He could sense the family connection, and when he said, "If you will not be turned, maybe she will."
Right.
Like, Luke just went crazy.
Mm.
He wasn't even using lightsaber skills. He was just swinging like a madman.
Yeah.
And it was so unorthodox that Vader, with all his skill, couldn't find a counter to it.
Right.
Like, Luke was overcome by rage and he was not going to be beat. So what did he do?
Chopped
Cut off Vader's arm.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was his mechanical arm
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And the Emperor, you know what? If the Emperor hadn't said anything when he did, I think Luke would have killed Vader.
Probably.
So the Emperor, opens his big mouth, and Luke realizes, I can't do it, and stupidly he drops his lightsaber, throws it to the ground, and then the Emperor shows Force Lightning.
Yeah.
Like, you could have blocked it with your saber if you hadn't thrown it to the ground.
Right.
But you know what? All's well that ends well. Vader sees his son in agony, and Luke is pleading to him, which finally breaks through to him because he was already struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And he fulfills the prophecy.
Right.
In the end, Anakin Skywalker was supposed to bring balance to the Force, and technically he did. He killed the Emperor.
Right.
So, throws him over a ledge, and however many feet of a drop that was, killed the Emperor.
Yep.
Lando and the Millennium Falcon.
Lando and the Millennium Falcon. They don't give Lando enough credit of destroying the second Millennium Falcon. And
You mean the second Death Star?
the second Death Star. And if you were lucky enough to be around at that time, you were able to join Lando in the battle against the Death Star in the Return of the Jedi video game, which was released, I believe, back in '83 by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. Yes, this was an actual game. Cartridges. We had cartridges back then, guys.
And just real quick before we end this, the Force Ghost of Anakin was not Hayden Christensen in the original.
It was Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah. And I know, if you ever seen Kevin Smith's other movie, Chasing Amy, how the gay black man is playing sort of a Black Panther-like comic book writer, just as a gimmick.
Right.
But he points out that as Vader's beautiful black visage is sullied when he takes the helmet off and we see a crusty, feeble old white man. and one of my favorite lines, he says, "They're trying to tell us that deep down we all wants to be white." And Jason Lee says, "Well, isn't that true?" And he fake shoots him with a fake gun.
It was like, "Black rage! Black rage!"
See, that part is so funny. But
the greatest Star Wars fan living, Kevin Smith.
Yes.
That's my man.
Now, this does it for the first episode of our series. The next one, we're going to go through the prequel trilogy and try to...
We're going to try to get through it, y'all.
Well, we're going to try and justify it.
It's part of canon. We can't do anything about it.
Thank you.
Misa not going to be looking forward to this. No.
See you later.
Take care.
I suggest a new strategy, RT.
Only different in your mind.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
The Jedi uses the Force.
weapon of the Jedi. The Force will be with you, always.